This is the setting of the JAKIB Media pregame show for Eagles Cowboys, the amazing, incredible Ocean Casino Resort, the amazing gallery, bar, book, and games. As football season is well upon us, this is where you can take in all the incredible game action. And yes, of course, the amazing pregame show. Seth Joyner, Derek Gunn, Mark Farzetta with you here from Ocean Casino Resort ahead of a really amazing Sunday night after an incredible week in Philadelphia sports when it comes to everything going on in the Philadelphia sports scene. The Eagles are looking to keep the good vibes going against the dreaded and hated Dallas Cowboys, who come to town today at 4-1, looking to improve to really 5-0 with their backup quarterback Cooper Rush under center, and the Eagles looking to improve to 6-0 on the season. A lot of words have been said already this week, mostly coming from the Dallas Cowboy camp. We'll respond to that. We'll have John McMullen joining us from Lincoln Financial Field a little bit later on in the program. But in the early goings of this, I know a lot of people talk about this, Gunner and Seth, about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys in a rivalry week, and the fans obviously make a big deal of this. Seth, you played in these games. You were a big part of the rivalry. Do fans look at this rivalry more so than players do for the size of the rivalry that it is?
No. Definitely not. These two games against this opponent, against this rival, is the biggest game, bar none. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know, yes, the New York Giants is a big game. Yes, the Washington Commanders are a big game. Absolutely. But there's none bigger than the hated Dallas Cowboys, okay? I mean, I've heard a coach once say, one thing I can guarantee you, I don't know what's going to happen in the other 14 games, but I can guarantee you we're going to kick Dallas' ass twice every single year.
I wonder who that could have been. Gunner, you, of course, traveled around a lot, all these different stadiums. You saw Eagles fans in the building down there in Dallas. You saw Dallas Cowboy fans here in Philadelphia as well. Do they look forward, the fan base, look forward to any other game on the schedule more so than Dallas Cowboys?
Well, from a Philadelphia Eagles fan base perspective, no. But it's always intrigued me how this so-called hatred between the two is more one-sided than a lot of people on the outside looking in. Philadelphia hates Dallas, no question about that, the players and the fans alike. But in all the times that I've traveled down to Dallas and talked to Dallas people, they always talk about they have more of a heated rival with the teams like the Giants or even Washington when you look at the history between those two. They respect the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Philadelphia Eagles fan base, but the hate is more lopsided Philadelphia Eagles toward Dallas than it is Dallas towards Philadelphia.
I can agree with that, just in talking to Dallas fans, being down there at AT&T Stadium a number of times. For whatever reason, the Eagles seem to fly under the radar, but, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the program, when it comes to what was said in the Dallas Cowboy locker room leading up to this game about Jalen Hurts and this offensive line. DeMarcus Lawrence had some strong words for this Philadelphia Eagles team. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But to set the scene a little bit, looking at this NFC East, a lot of people looking at this division before the season thought, oh, this is going to be a terrible division. Here it is, the best in football. The Giants win again. And Seth Joyner, last week you asked me a question about who I would rather face, the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys. And right now, thanks in large part to a huge interception in the final 3 minutes of that ballgame, the Giants improved to 5-1. So here we are, looking at the Eagles, looking at the Cowboys as two teams that are just now trying to keep pace with the New York Giants of all teams in this division. Brian Daboll's did an incredible job of turning it around. How have they done it, aside from just the head coach?
Well, you know, Derek Gunn, we talked about it last week. This is a team that every other team in the division is going to have to worry about. Playing against the New York Giants is not going to be a guaranteed 2 wins every single year anymore. You know, Derek said, listen, they finally hired the right GM. They finally hired the right head coach. They finally hired the right defensive coordinator. And it's paying off because, you know, you can look at these players and watch how they play. You know, this team was just demoralized for the last 3 to 5 years. And all of a sudden, the coach comes in and the GM speaks life into him and the defensive coordinator begins to speak life into him. And they play like they believe that they can win every game that they go into. Listen, Saquon Barkley is healthy again. He's a problem. Daniel Jones seems like he's got the type of coaching and confidence injected into him that he's playing at a better level. He understands when to run. He knows where he's going with the ball. He knows where his outlets are. I mean, he looks like a completely, different quarterback. Now, his numbers aren't, mind-blowing, But then again, you look over on the defensive side of the ball, and the thing you see over there as well is, Mr. Wink Martindale over there. And he is one of the most, how do I say it? He's one of the most imaginative and creative defensive coordinators in the league. I'm still baffled when I look at the Baltimore Ravens defense, why they ever let him go. What both him and Brian Daboll have been able to do with this team in short order is nothing short of spectacular. And the Giants are going to be a problem in the NFC East this year. I'm sure everyone looked at those two games later in the season and kind of put a W next to it and scratched it off. No. We got to go up there. It's going to be a battle. They're going to come down here. It's going to be a battle. I mean, unless someone gets hurt, if Saquon gets hurt or Daniel Jones gets hurt, those are the only things that's going to keep that from being a battle. But the New York Giants have figured out a way to turn their organization around in short order, and they're going to be a problem in the division.
It all started for the Giants that first game of the season against Tennessee when Brian Daboll looked at his players on the sideline and said, I'm going for it. Instead of going for the tie against Tennessee and possibly going to overtime, he said, we're going for the win now. His players agreed in unison, let's go for it. That's where you start changing the culture. Now, had they not made that two-point conversion and lost that game, maybe the Giants wouldn't be what they are today. But I think that set the tone for the new-look New York Giants right out of the gate. And look at what they've done in just a span of 8 days. They beat the Green Bay Packers. Today they turn around and beat the Baltimore Ravens. All right, now they're sitting here at 5-1, and everybody's wondering, we're not only worried about the Dallas Cowboys, we got this team with the Giants to worry about. Brian Daboll is coaching this team offensively exactly what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo and that offensive weaponry there. He moves players around. They run this direction plays. When you think about it, the Giants are still not healthy in the offensive line. They're not a complete defense, but whoever steps in fills the gap, and nobody has a letdown.
I said last week that the Dallas Cowboys frighten me more than the New York Giants, and that still is true for me just because of one person, and that's Micah Parsons, who the Eagles are going to be facing today. But after watching the Giants today, do you think the Giants are the bigger test or tonight's game against the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I will still look at the Dallas Cowboys based on the strength of their defense. I've said time and time again on this platform and other platforms, I think Dallas's defensive front is the quickest off the snap in the National Football League. They move a lot of people around. They like to do a lot of stunts and twists. And they rotate 7, 8 different guys up in the front. It all predicates with Micah Parsons and then some. But Dallas has 9 different people on defense that has a quarterback sack. So it's not just a Micah Parsons show. The coordinator down there is putting a lot of players in position to make plays. Offensively, they're not even close to their defense, but their defense is winning a lot of games for their offense.
If you're going to be up against that defense today, of course, you're going to need a very strong offensive line. There's some talk about Jordan Mailata. There's some talk about Andre Dillard now. Gunnar, who are you hearing is going to be on the left side of that offensive line of scrimmage?
Well, earlier today I was told Mailata's ready to go. Landon Dickinson's ready to go. Sayamalo's ready to go. If they're ready to go, I like strength against strength. The Dallas defense is considered one of the best in the league. The Eagles' offensive line is considered the best in the offensive league. Strength against strength. Let's see which front is the stronger.
All right, you're looking at a couple of guys, again, coming off injury, going up against a stout defensive line. You're coming up against a team that is second coming into this game in sacks in the NFL. It's not just Micah Parsons, although he is the headliner, of course, of that defense. But you got guys like Dorrance Armstrong out there trying to make plays for this team, and a linebacking core behind him, also DeMarcus Lawrence, who we've mentioned, but a linebacking core behind him and behind that defensive line that is willing to show up. What will this matchup look like today, Seth Joyner?
Well, last week I took a whole lot of fire for a comment that I made. I said that, if the Eagles don't figure out how to right what they did wrong last week, that they would get embarrassed tonight. That means that they've got to shore up their block on the offensive line. They got to come out committed to running the ball early to set the stage, set the table for Jalen Hurts. And defensively, you got to get up at the line of scrimmage and challenge these wide receivers and bring some pressure from time to time. If you don't do those things, then you're going to give this young quarterback, this running game of Dallas, an opportunity to get going. And when you allow both phases, to operate the way it needs to operate, then you got problems on your hand. The other thing is, listen, Micah Parsons might not be the only guy, okay? But don't get it wrong. He sets the table. Because when they can line him up at defensive end, at defensive tackle, at outside linebacker, off the ball, in coverage. I mean, blitz him. They do everything with this guy, okay? And a lot of what they do is predicated on how they use him. So hopefully, the Eagles coaching staff has done their homework to kind of understand when he's in certain positions, when they line him up in certain places, they do certain things. They run certain games. I'm glad that Mailata's back, and I'm glad that Dickerson's back because, now they can't play that little game where we'll have, the two backups over on the left side, and they'll line both Mailata and Micah Parsons up on the same side and just wreak havoc. So to Dee's point, hey, you got big on big. We're at full strength. They're at full strength. They're going to come out understanding that, they're on our home turf. And if they're on the Eagles' home turf, well, guess what? You better come out and punch the home team in the mouth early. The question is, can the Eagles sustain that? Can they figure out, how to overcome that? Because trust me, the Dallas, Dan Quinn has completely transformed himself and that defense in short order with just a couple of players. They're going to look at week 1 against the Lions. They're going to look at last week's game, and they're going to see the passivity. And he's not afraid to go man. He's not afraid to bring pressure. He wants Jalen Hurts under pressure tonight, okay? It's up to the Eagles to coordinate their offense in a way where they can minimize his ability to do that. If he gets you behind the chains, you get a penalty on first down, or you lose yards on first or second down, and now you're behind the sticks, well, guess what's going to happen? He's going to send pressure. And can you pick it up? Really, man? Really?
Just waving.
Come on, man.
He's waving. Saying
Really?
hello. Saying hello.
Wow.
Yeah. When you look at this defense from the Eagles' perspective on this, Gunner, are they going to be able to send pressure, Cooper Rush? Do you see them being aggressive in this type of situation, or do you see them just waiting for him to make mistakes?
I think the best way, first of all, Cooper Rush doesn't make mistakes. He hasn't made mistakes this season since he's been under quarterback. One thing about Cooper Rush is he's going to be a stationary target. He's not going anywhere. If there was ever a game you want to come after a guy, tonight is the night you come after him because he's going to be right there waiting for you. He is a cool, calm customer under pressure. I've watched him play 3 times this season. He doesn't get rattled. Their offense is not explosive. They're not scoring many points, but he's an efficient quarterback. They're running an efficient offense, and based on what the defense gives them, short fields, a lot of 3-and-outs, that's a big reason why the Cowboys have been so successful up to this point.
Am I living in a dream world today to just be at least wishing that the Philadelphia Eagles come out and actually run the football? And Seth, I know you mentioned this a second ago, but I'm looking at Miles Sanders, and I'm looking at the game he had 2 games ago, and I see what the Eagles were able to do in the fourth quarter against the Arizona Cardinals, and they actually owned the run game in that fourth quarter against the Arizona Cardinals. It's how they were able to sustain those long fourth quarter drives. And now you're going up against, believe it or not, a middle-of-the-road rushing attack. That is the rushing defense of the Dallas Cowboys, and you're going up against a running back in Miles Sanders who is averaging just under 5 yards a carry. If you're looking to protect your quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and if they are going to be blitzing as much as a guy like Jason Kelsey said earlier in the week, he expects the Dallas Cowboys to be blitzing. Is it that much of a fantasy to think about this Philadelphia Eagles offense going back to maybe more of a run-first offense like we saw last year? Will we see Miles Sanders be more of a bell cow back in this game?
Well, I don't know about bell cow because I don't really think that that's really what the Eagles want him to be. That wound up being the case against the Jaguars because I think, the weather conditions, predicted that you run your offense that way. I think they want to run the ball enough to take away some of the aggression from the Dallas Cowboys and to stay on time and stay on schedule. Because if they lose yards on first down or they have a penalty on first or second down that puts them behind the chains, on third down, they're coming. The way that you stop, an aggressive defense is you screen them. You delay draw them. You run the ball right at them and you make them play physical football out the gate. If the game plan is anything else, you're playing right into Dallas's hands, in my opinion, because really what they want to do is they want to get to a point where they force you into passing situations all the time. They want Jalen Hurts to have to put the ball in the air 40, 45 times tonight. What does that do? That allows them to turn loose their best players, in the circumstances and the situations that they want, and allows the defensive coordinator to be as aggressive as he want to be, okay? If Jalen Hurts throws the ball 40 times tonight, I promise you, he will get sacked 5 times and the Eagles will struggle mightily to win this game. And it will mean that they either did not commit to running the football or they tried to run the football and weren't complex enough in their schematics to actually get it done.
Any chance, Gunner, that we see Miles Sanders with another 20 to 25 carry game tonight?
I think it depends on what the situation calls for. If he's a hot hand, yes, there's a good possibility. I've always said I don't want to see Miles Sanders running the football 25, 30 times a game. I don't think he's built that way. I think he's a more effective back when he gets 15 to 18 to 20, 22 touches a game, and that includes in the swing pass game, the screen game, so on and so forth. A back of his size, if you overwork him, you're not going to have him to finish the race, down the road. And they need him in the months of November and December and into January to get to where they want to go. Miles Sanders is an exceptionally talented back, but he's like a lot of backs in the National Football League. There are very few Derrick Henrys left in the National Football League that can carry the ball 30 times a game, 350, 400 times in a season. And as we've seen, even Derrick Henry's starting to wear down now at this stage of his career. So, no, I don't want to see Miles Sanders on a regular basis carrying the ball 25 times a game. But if he's having a tremendous amount of success against this Dallas defense and he's picking up 5, 7, 8 yards a carry, you got to go with the hot hand.
I'll go with the 5 to 7. I'll take that, but I'll also take – I know on that particular play, Jalen Hurts isn't getting hit.
Yeah,
I'll take that as well.
Yeah.
One other matchup I want to talk about here in our opening segment, it has to do with Trevon Diggs, who picked off Jalen Hurts in their first matchup last year in Dallas, and another drubbing, 2 drubbings that the Eagles took at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys last year. The second one, of course, the Eagles didn't have playoff seeding to play for at that point. The Dallas Cowboys did. But spinning it back to Diggs here for a second, 9 passes defended so far this year, 9 passes deflected, actually, and he has done a heck of a job. It's leading the NFL in that stat, in that category. Plays all over the field, matches up against guys, number 1 target. In this game, gentlemen, are you expecting Trevon Diggs to be on A.J. Brown, or are you expecting him, Gunner, to play against Devontae Smith in this game? Where do you see him lining up?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of Diggs against A.J. Brown. You talk about him having the 9 passes defended in the National Football League, which is number 1, but he also is susceptible to the big play. Quarterbacks are completing 62% of their passes against him this year compared to 52% last year. So he is that consummate riverboat boat gambler. He's going to come up. He's going to bite on the face. Is he strong enough to stay with Jalen Brown on those slant plays? That's going to be a big question. There's not many DBs in the league that can handle A.J. Brown when it comes to those slant plays or physical enough to combat him for 60 minutes of football. Trevon Diggs is a talented cornerback, but he's also a cornerback that can be beat. Let's see how many times Jalen tries to go to A.J. Brown. You better go to him more than what you did last week, which was 3 times for 32 yards. You have to incorporate this man more in this offense.
What are you doing with Diggs tonight?
I kind of get the sense that, they can be a little arrogant as a defense sometimes. Some of the things that they run, and, they're cocky because, they're an aggressive and they're a good defense. Listen, does A.J. Brown warrant, the coverage where Diggs is going to be on them everywhere that you are? Sure. But then again, that opens up, everything else for Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins and Dallas Goedert, when you can get Kenneth Gainwell engaged in picking up the blitz and things of that nature. You can get him out of the backfield. The Eagles have a lot of weapons, and I think sometimes when you have that many weapons, what winds up happening is the team realizes that stopping that one guy is not going to win you the game. So you might as well just leave him on his side. Everybody play their own side, and you just do what you do. I think it's one of those things where if A.J. Brown starts to get off real early in the game, and they start moving him around and they're having problems with him, then I could see them saying, okay, get on him, shut him down. But the problem with that is you're kind of limited as a defense coordinator in what you can call. If you can line him up in the slot at X and Z, now you got a problem because I can dictate coverage just based upon that, and I can set my routes and my play calling based off of that, because anytime that they're man-to-man, he's going to follow him everywhere that he goes. Anytime that, if you're in zone, you mean to tell me, 2 by 2, that Trevon Diggs is going to be a flat player? I don't see it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for that guy to be out of position, having to drop into a zone if you're in a zone. So if you see him moving, you can almost rest assured that they're going to be in some kind of man coverage if he latches on to A.J. Brown wherever it is that he goes.
I can see two different scenarios where Trayvon Diggs may not be on A.J. Brown. Number one, if early in the game if it's identified that Trayvon just can't handle his physicality, then they may put Anthony Brown or Jordan Lewis on A.J. Brown. And if Devontae Smith gets the hot hand, they can move Trayvon over to him real quick and, of course, rotate coverage over to the other side to try to double up on A.J. and put Trayvon single coverage on Devontae.
All right, now when you look at this game, I mentioned at the top of the show, a 4-0 Dallas Cowboys team with a guy named Cooper Rush as their starting quarterback. Is it as simple as their defense has just played out of their mind, or has Cooper Rush done something to help this team win football games? How, without their franchise quarterback, have they maintained pace with the New York Giants and the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, if you look at the numbers right here, 61%, that's what he's completing his passes at. That 93.9 passer rating is actually up there in the top 20 in the league for a backup quarterback being thrown into the mixer. Top 15, actually. How is this team winning with this guy as their starting quarterback?
The stat that you don't have is how well they've run the football, and they've kept the pressure off of him. If you divide that 839 by 4, I'm not a mathematician, but that ain't but, 210 yards per game passing the ball. So that tells me that he hadn't had to do anything extraordinary. All he had to do was just manage the situation as it was. The defense is playing lights out. Pollard and Zeke are running the ball really well. So when they need him to throw the ball, they call upon him to throw the ball. No team, as of yet, has just shut down the Dallas offense to the point where you put the game, into Cooper Rush's hands. That's the smart thing for me today. Don't go into this game afraid. Go into this game with the mindset like you had in Week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings and in Week 3 against the Washington Commanders, okay? Let's be aggressive. Let's light the box up, fill the box up, and make the intent, make the decision that we're going to stuff the run early and often. And now let's see if Cooper Rush, Mr. Joe Cool that you've been calling him down there in Dallas, let's see if he can step up and win you the football game with his arm. And when we force you to do that, because now we have the lead and we make you have to throw the ball, now still don't be passive. Step up and challenge the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage and bring some pressure, because the pressure will make the difference in this game. But if you sit back and just let him be comfortable in the pocket, and they got a running game that's going halfway decent, I mean, you're gonna be fighting for this W all the way down to the end of the game.
I think the most telling tale in the stat that we just showed is he only has 4 touchdown passes, but 0 interceptions in 4+ games. When you look at some of the biggest name quarterbacks in the NFL that already have 3, 4, 5, 6 interceptions up to this point of the season, this guy has no interceptions. And Seth is right. The running game has really helped him out of a lot of jams. Tony Pollard has emerged since last season as a bigger home run threat than Ezekiel Elliott. So you have that 1-2 combination. You still have that battering ram and Zeke between the tackles, and this is the guy that can take it to the house, Tony Pollard. I've said on a number of platforms, it might be soon when Zeke Elliott is looking for a new team, because it's going to be the Tony Pollard show down in Dallas.
Not far off. You're talking about a guy in Ezekiel Elliott who has about only 50 more yards than Tony Pollard and twice the carries. More than twice the carries. When we come back, we're going to go virtually to Lincoln Financial Field, where our man John McMullen, the JAKIB Media Football Insider, will be joining us from Lincoln Financial Field coming up in just a few.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Do you stream on a Roku? Fire